Jodeci's on MCA, and myself, Latifah, and so for real.
On a chilly November morning in 2011, the music world stood still. Outside Grace Baptist Church in Mount Vernon, New York, fans gathered shoulder to shoulder as limousines pulled up and celebrities filed inside. Diddy, Jay-Z, Usher, Will Smith, Mary J. Blige. In November 2011, the music world mourned the passing of Heavy D, the hip-hop icon born Dwight Arrington Myers in 1967 in Mandeville, Jamaica. Known to millions as the Gentle Giant, he carried with him not only an extraordinary career, but also a legacy of warmth, generosity, and influence that stretched far beyond music. His funeral, held at Grace Baptist Church in Mount Vernon, New York, was attended by some of the biggest stars in entertainment. Diddy, Jay-Z, Usher, Will Smith, Mary J. Blige, and others filled the sanctuary to pay respects to a man who had shaped an era. Yet amid the grandeur and solemn grief, one detail stood out with painful clarity. When it came to the cast of Living Single, the groundbreaking 1990s sitcom Heavy D had once been a part of, only Queen Latifah was present. Fans who remembered the cultural significance of the show and its supposed on-screen family were left asking, where were the others? And did their absence reveal something deeper about hidden conflicts, broken relationships, and wounds that had never healed? To understand the weight of that absence, one must first appreciate who Heavy D was. Moving with his family from Jamaica to Mount Vernon as a child, young Dwight adapted quickly to the rhythms of his neighborhood and found solace in music. In 1987, his group Heavy D and the Boys released their debut album Living Large, instantly propelling him into the hip-hop scene. Unlike many rappers of his time who burned brightly and faded quickly, Heavy D's career endured across decades. His charismatic stage presence, approachable style, and a smile that softened his imposing figure made him unique in a genre often defined by aggression. From hits like Mr. Big Stuff to the versatile 1997 album Big Daddy, he proved that consistency and talent could coexist with humility. More than just an entertainer, Heavy D was a bridge for others. Queen Latifah recalled that at 18, it was Heavy D who gave her her first stage appearance, while Will Smith admitted that he and DJ Jazzy Jeff benefited from Heavy D's connections in the rap world. His kindness left an indelible mark on countless peers, making him not just a legend in the industry, but also a deeply loved friend. Heavy D's ties to Living Single were more than casual. He not only contributed musically, performing the show's theme song that introduced audiences each week to the adventures of 6 young black friends in Brooklyn, but he also made guest appearances as Daryl, a love interest for Kim Fields' character, Regine Hunter. In one particularly memorable episode, he delivered a Thanksgiving prayer that moved the fictional dinner table and real audiences into quiet reflection, offering thanks not for receiving, but for giving. That moment of sincerity captured the real essence of Heavy D, embedding him into the sitcom's legacy. His brief on-screen romance with Regine created comedy and humanity, highlighting the clash between superficial materialism and authentic love. Through these moments, Heavy D became more than just a cameo. He became part of the show's soul. When Living Single premiered in 1993, it marked a turning point for television. For the first time, a major network sitcom centered entirely on young black professionals navigating careers, friendships, and love in New York City. Starring Queen Latifah as Khadijah James, Kim Fields as Regine Hunter, Kim Coles as Sinclair James, Erica Alexander as Maxine Shaw, John Henton as Overton Jones, and TC Carson as Kyle Barker, the ensemble quickly became cultural touchstones. Audiences saw themselves reflected in ways mainstream media had long ignored, and the show's success paved the way for later diverse productions. On screen, they were a family, laughing, fighting, reconciling, and always coming back to one another. Off-screen, however, tensions brewed that would fracture the illusion of unity. The cracks began with TC Carson, whose portrayal of Kyle gave the show much of its edge and humor, particularly in his fiery exchanges with Alexander's Maxine. Carson, however, found himself at odds with the producers and network executives. Speaking to the Chicago Tribune in 2000, he revealed that Fox treated Living Single as second-class compared to white-led shows. Despite strong ratings, the sitcom never received the promotional support it deserved. Carson, unafraid to voice grievances on behalf of his colleagues, became a thorn in the side of decision-makers. By season 5, he was informed his character would be written out. To him, it wasn't just the loss of a role, but the loss of what he thought was a family. Fans were outraged by Kyle's abrupt departure, but the decision was final. Years later, Carson's absence at Heavy D's funeral became another reminder of those old wounds, a silence that spoke volumes. Kim Fields, who had grown up a child star in The Facts of Life, also carried her own struggles. Playing the glamorous and materialistic Regine, she brought humor and style to the ensemble, but behind the scenes, she often felt overshadowed by Latifah's dominance. Queen Latifah was not only the lead character, but also a producer already, a rising rap star with an expanding profile. Fields, by contrast, had the history and talent of a seasoned actress, but sometimes felt her role was diminished to comic relief. Sources hinted that the professional distance between Fields and Latifah mirrored an off-screen coldness, a polite but strained relationship. Fields' absence from Heavy D's funeral fed the perception that whatever bond they had on screen never fully extended into real life. Kim Coles, who made audiences adore the sweet, naive Sinclair, also experienced frustrations. Though her character was beloved, Coles reportedly felt undervalued compared to her peers, both in recognition and pay. While Latifah's star power loomed large, Coles struggled to claim her own spotlight. Subtle remarks over the years hinted at quiet resentment, and her absence at the funeral was interpreted by some fans as a continuation of that distance. The contrast between Sinclair's role as the show's heart and the reality of Coles' struggles added another layer of irony. Erica Alexander, whose Maxine Shaw became one of television's most iconic black female characters, was perhaps the most outspoken about inequities. She openly discussed how Fox failed to support Living Single, despite its status as the network's #1 show for several years. She also addressed the glaring injustice that became undeniable in 1994, when NBC launched Friends. With 6 Toipo young adults living in New York, navigating love and careers, the premise was eerily familiar to Living Single. The key difference lay in race. The Friends cast was entirely white, and NBC invested heavily in promoting them worldwide. Friends became a juggernaut, generating billions and elevating its cast to superstardom. Meanwhile, Living Single, despite arriving first and proving the concept's appeal, was sidelined and left without similar opportunities. Alexander's pain was twofold. She watched a formula pioneered by her show be celebrated when repackaged in whiteness. And she also felt marginalized within her own cast as Latifah's influence grew. Her absence from Heavy D's funeral underscored how far the gap between perception and reality had stretched. Then there was John Henton, the actor who played Overton, the lovable handyman, and Sinclair's devoted partner. Henton's real-life tragedy struck in 2000, when a horrific car accident left him with severe injuries that required reconstructive surgery. Though he survived, his career never fully recovered, and he gradually disappeared from public view. For fans, his absence from the funeral may have been less about conflict and more about the toll life had taken on him. Yet it still contributed to the sense that the living single family was no longer whole. What emerged in the aftermath of Heavy D's funeral was a striking image. Queen Latifah, standing alone among a sea of celebrities, mourning her friend not only as a fellow artist, but as someone tied deeply to the cultural fabric of living single. Her presence symbolized loyalty and remembrance, yet it also highlighted the fractures that had split her castmates apart. The supposed family that had once laughed together on screen had long since scattered, burdened by grievances, disappointments, and personal tragedies. The story of living single versus friends remains one of television's most glaring examples of racial inequity. While Friends averaged 25 million viewers per episode, generated billions in revenue, and continues to earn its cast members millions, annually, Living Single pulled in 8 to 10 million viewers in its prime, but was denied comparable promotion and legacy. Its 118 episodes never received the global marketing blitz or streaming deals that kept Friends alive across generations. For those who lived through both shows, the injustice felt deliberate, as if Hollywood could only embrace the concept once. Whitened. Even David Schwimmer, who played Ross on Friends, admitted that NBC had discussed diversifying the cast, but chose not to, believing an all-white ensemble would be more marketable. Yet the cast of Living Single has each carved their own paths since the show's end in 1998. Queen Latifah has ascended to unparalleled success as a singer, actress, and producer, amassing wealth and influence while maintaining a private personal life now shared with her partner Ebony Nichols and their son, Rebel. Kim Fields found a second act as a director, working behind the camera on hit sitcoms and re-emerging as a star on Netflix's The Upshaws. Kim Coles has continued acting, recently appearing in Days of Our Lives, and co-hosts a nostalgic podcast with Erica Alexander, keeping the spirit of living single alive. Alexander herself has thrived as a multi-hyphenate, earning acclaim for her role in American fiction and becoming a powerful voice for racial justice and Black representation in media. John Henton lives more quietly after his accident, while TC Carson has continued performing through voice work in animation and video games, maintaining a loyal fan base. 3 decades after its debut, Living Single remains a groundbreaking sitcom that not only entertained but challenged the television industry's structures. Its cast members, each bearing unique struggles and triumphs, embody the complicated legacy of a show that deserved more than it received. Heavy D's funeral crystallized this truth. The on-screen illusion of family had fractured off-screen, and the absence of most cast members served as a poignant reminder of the unhealed scars left behind. Still, in the memories of fans, Living Single will always be a symbol of laughter, resilience, and cultural pride, while Heavy D himself will forever be remembered as the gentle giant whose kindness touched all who knew him. The funeral that exposed the divides also reminded the world of the bonds, however imperfect, that once defined a generation of Black excellence on television and in music. Heavy D's legacy also lives on in the generations that followed him. To many, he was not just an artist who thrived during hip-hop's golden age, but a prototype for a kind of performer who could embrace joy, openness, and crossover appeal without sacrificing authenticity. Long before the genre had matured into a global force, Heavy D carved out a space for artists who were playful as well as serious, who rapped about love as easily as they did about struggle, and who saw no contradiction in moving between the streets, the studio, and the screen. That flexibility became a blueprint for artists who came after him. consider how his collaborations reshaped the cultural landscape. Heavy D was one of the first rappers invited into the orbit of Michael Jackson, appearing on the 1991 track Jam, a moment that announced to the world that rap could share space with pop's most untouchable superstar. He also worked with Janet Jackson, B.B. King, and John Legend, showing a willingness to bridge genres that would later become the hallmark of artists like Drake and Missy Elliott. At a time when the mainstream often painted rap as dangerous or one-dimensional, Heavy D presented an alternative. Hip-hop as inclusive, versatile, and rooted in generosity. That spirit of generosity extended to how he treated younger artists. Queen Latifah was only one of many who benefited from his mentorship. Sean "Diddy" Combs, then a young intern at Uptown Records, found in Heavy D a mentor who championed his rise as a producer and label executive. Usher, whose early career was launched under Uptown, likewise felt the ripple effect of Heavy D's presence. To listen to these figures speak about him after his passing is to realize that his influence cannot be measured solely in record sales or chart positions. His real legacy was in the doors he opened and the encouragement he gave to those who would define the next era. In that sense, Heavy D's absence today is felt not just as the loss of a singular artist, but as the silencing of a cultural bridge. In an industry often fractured by ego and competition, he modeled a different way, one that valued connection, kindness, and collaboration. Even his nickname, the Overweight Lover, carried with it a warmth and playfulness that defied the machismo-dominating rap in the late 1980s and early 1990s. He helped create space for artists who didn't fit narrow archetypes, proving that hip-hop could contain multitudes. The ripple effects of his work can be traced in contemporary culture. Artists like Chance the Rapper, J. Cole, and Anderson .Paak embody aspects of Heavy D's legacy, blending earnestness with artistry, refusing to separate vulnerability from confidence. In their openness, one can sense echoes of the gentle giant who once stood on stage in colorful jackets, smiling as he moved crowds without ever needing to trade in menace. Even in the explosion of hip-hop into global pop dominance, from Kendrick Lamar's Pulitzer Prize to Cardi B's pop anthems, Heavy D's precedent is clear. He proved hip-hop could sit at any table without losing its soul. For the cast of Living single, his presence also underscored how art and community intersect. His Thanksgiving prayer on the show may have been scripted, but it resonated because it was authentic to who he was. It captured a truth that extended far beyond a single sitcom, that gratitude and generosity are the foundation of community, whether in music, television, or life itself. If his funeral revealed divisions among the people he once worked with, it also reminded fans of the higher ideal he represented. Heavy D's story is ultimately one of continuity. He arrived as a Jamaican immigrant child navigating the streets of Mount Vernon, rose to become a hip-hop icon, crossed over into film and television, and left behind a blueprint for those who came after. His career was not marked by scandal or downfall, but by steady presence, constant reinvention, and consistent kindness. In an industry that often forgets its pioneers, his memory persists not only because of his music, but because of the countless lives he touched. As fans revisit Living single on streaming services or rediscover Heavy D's catalog, they are reminded of a man who carried with him more than talent. He carried the ethos of a generation that believed hip-hop could be fun, uplifting, and universal. His absence at 44 was a devastating loss, but his spirit continues in the artists, actors, and fans who carry forward his example. To speak of Heavy D today is not merely to mourn what was lost, but to acknowledge what endures, a legacy of love, mentorship, and cultural continuity that still shapes Black excellence across music and television.